All right, I'd like to call the Joint Special School Building Committee to order. We're at Nashua High School North Lecture Hall. It's Thursday, February 24th, 2022, and it's 7:02 p.m. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Wiltshire. Here. Alderman Clee is not here. Alderman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Ms. Raymond is not here. Ms. Lampier.
Here.
Ms. Bishop is here. Ms. Gilio is not here. And Mr. Claffey is not here. We have a quorum, but we also have Mr. Parker and Mr. Sullivan.
Yep. All right. So the clerk would please call the roll, and Ms. Bishop, would you lead us in the pledge?
Mm-hmm. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We missed the prayer.
Is the prayer in here? Oh, look at that. Okay. Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the educational affairs of our beloved cities. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. So help us, God.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. If there are no objections, I'll waive the reading of the minutes of January 27th, 2022, and place them on file. Okay. So, remarks by the chairman. We finally have the AOT from the state of New Hampshire, so we can start the new project. New school project down South End, so more on that will be coming. So thanks everybody for being here. I know we have a lot of people on vacation, so. All right, remarks by school administration? No?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Nothing here, thank you.
Nothing yet? Okay, items for discussion, approval of invoices. So the first thing is the architect's report. Jamie?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a short presentation tonight covering a few things that I want to make sure we covered today. We will go ahead and get started on that. So tonight's agenda will, kind of as we've been doing, is hit on each one of the three middle schools in order of Fairgrounds, Pennachuck, and the new middle school. The reason we're bringing Fairgrounds back here, I know it's pretty complete. There are a few items that are still looking to be completed. I want to talk a little bit about about the contingency that's remaining on that, and then some proposed contingency use, and I'll explain that in just a moment. I did want to mention too that we did have a couple of the board members, a couple of aldermen here tonight at the school at 3 o'clock to do a tour, and that we did a quick tour around there and got to show it off a little more to some others, so that was kind of nice. All right. So the remaining contract work is work that Harvey is still scheduled to complete. Some of it will probably be happening during vacations, and then finishing up some of it in the summer that really can't be done during the school.
So all of those things have been approved and by the board, so.
Right, nothing new in the
Nothing new
scope.
there.
The island edging, which I point a little arrow down to the, you can see where the stones are kind of spilling into the walkways. So some edging that's going to go around there. Just waiting for that to come in, and now the ground to kind of soften up so they can get those in. There's some miscellaneous door hardware items that need to be taken care of in the courtyards. Some miscellaneous mechanical and electrical items that are outstanding. And then some interior signage items that needed to be corrected, a couple of signs that were misordered and whatnot that need to be placed. So pretty minimal stuff, but all things that are intended to be completed. Now, when we talk contingency, the project has, each one of the middle schools has different multitude of contingencies. The contingency monies are generally used for items that are either missed in doing the contracts, errors and omissions, additional items that the owner, you folks may want to add into the project. So the different uses of these contingencies. It's almost like a pot of money for those type of items that need to be used for the project. So in this particular case, we'll be talking about the owner and architect contingency. The contractor has their pot of money too that they'll talk about at a future time. So in this case, you could see the proposed budget of contingency for the Fairgrounds Middle School specifically was a little over $1.6 million. None of it has been used to date. And then, so the remaining balance is 1.6. So there's a few items. So this pot of money may be things at the end of the project that you realize that you want to add into the project. Things along, of course, along the way, we're kind of past that at this point. But there's been some items that were originally indicated to kind of earmarked for future work if the budget allowed. So this would be a good opportunity to use some of that contingency for these items that have now been, now that the project's pretty much complete. You're not going to have any additional findings or things that need to be, have to be addressed. So I would like to go over some of those items that have come forward as items that could or should be addressed.
Jamie, if I could interject
Yeah.
a little bit. So the 1.6 million, that number is not what we started with. And we have spent money against that. So that's I just keep that line as zeroed out because it just shows exactly how much we have left. At Fairgrounds Middle School, we've had just under 199,000 of change orders that we've approved, this committee has approved. So that has come out of that pot of money. In addition to that, as I've closed out different lines, so you can see, for example, geotechnical services, the remaining balance is 0, surveying services 0, industrial hygienist is 0. I started back in the proposed budget with much higher numbers. The geotechnical, I probably had 25 or 30,000, whatever the number was. So as I get to the point where I know I'm not going to use that particular vendor or that service anymore, I'll zero that out. That money then goes into the contingency line. So the number will go up and down as we go through a project. But as Jamie indicated, that is how much money we have currently unidentified for any other use.
So it's not a number that we have to spend, just to bring that out. But there are some things that we really should do. We can take a small part of that money and do them. The balance goes into the middle school project, and we will need that, especially for the new school. And, at this point, we're not far enough along at Pennachuck to know where that will be, but there's contingencies at Pennachuck too. So these are things, Jamie's going to present things that we really, we didn't want to spend it up front because we didn't know how things go on the project, but things went exceptionally well, on time, on schedule, under budget. So, okay, Jamie.
Thank you both. That's very helpful. Yeah, and I mean, some of these items are items that are not put in the project initially because the budget may or may not have encompassed it, but they are usually easily done after the fact. So that's why you kind of pick those items generally. So those particular items, I actually kind of skipped a slide here. Sorry. So if acceptable to the board, we'd recommend that the proposed contingency use, which is, no, I guess I didn't skip it, I apologize. So the proposed contingency use that I'll be presenting in a minute is $350,000. So $350,000 is the estimate that Harvey has given for the work that's proposed in the next slide. We have not done the official design documents. Those are in progress. Harvey based their estimate on some kind of initial scope documents given to them. And so once they have the official documents, they would end up issuing those to the subcontractors to get bids on for these pieces of work that'll come up in the next slide. If it'd be acceptable to the board, we'd recommend that the board accept a not to exceed dollar amount of $350,000 for this work. If there's items in there that you maybe don't want to accept, then we can look at that separately, but I'd like to go through that list here.
And typically, when we do not to exceeds, it's a number that we feel very comfortable for, and 99 times out of 100, it comes back and we have money left from that. So that would fall back into contingency.
Right, Harvey's estimate was based on their expectation for the scope, but in the bidding process, they generally, that would come back at a better price. And if there's things that don't, then we can come back and review that with the board if need be, so. All right, so those items are replace 5 exterior door locations. There's existing doors around the building that were not replaced. They have rust through, they're corroding, I think all of them were the ones that were done back in the 90s editions. And there's an image in the next slide, or one of the next slides, that'll show you kind of some of the conditions that we're talking about. The other item B is replace the guidance carpet. Again, the last time that carpet was replaced is, I believe, back in the 90s edition time frame. And although it's holding up pretty well, it is in need of replacement. The same goes for the Learning Commons. It's the same vintage. There's some areas that should receive some new and replaced tile wainscot in some of the higher abuse areas, which is more specifically the corridor areas, and it's mostly around the commons areas inside there. We're starting to see some areas that are pretty beat up on some of those walls, and that should be, the tile wainscot would help protect the walls in those areas, so that way they don't take continued abuse, or at least there's a strong protection layer to keep them from getting abused, so that you don't have to have maintenance continually going in to patch or paint those particular areas. We had renovated during this project initially the core space of the building, kind of the original building, had 6 science rooms. So the all new science tables were put into that space. But the 90s edition science room that's remaining did not get new tables in it. And those tables are not epoxy top tables. And the request was to have some new tables in that area that are more built for science of a middle school level. So that's replacing 16 tables in one of the science rooms in the building. And then the last item is to replace some science power drop cords. The power cords that are there are suspended cords that have to be tied up or disconnected in order to, if you don't want to use them or if you want to keep them out of the way. They'd like to have some retractable cord types so that they're up at the ceiling, and if they're needed for science experiments or an activity in the center of the school, center of the class as opposed to near the wall, they want to have some pull down cords.
Similar to the ones that are in the sewing area.
Right. So those are the 6 items that were identified as things that still would like to be completed to close out the project. So here is an example of, I think, 2 doors out of the 5. And these are all double doors. So when I say 5 exterior door locations, it's 10 doors. And then either replacement or patching of frames as needed. We're kind of looking at the condition of each of the frames to see if they need to be replaced or not.
So there's we looked at this at the beginning and sort of, we wanted to do this, but we didn't put them into the original project. But there's two reasons for replacing them. One is that they're gonna have even more of a failure soon, and then would come out of the school department's contingent, Sean's, what do you call it? The deferred maintenance, which the mayor doesn't really fund well to begin with. And the other reason is, we just went through all this, putting the new HVAC system in, and here's places where the heat and cool leak. So, you know, it makes sense to tighten this up.
A third reason is actually from the director of safety and security for the school, that these are full glass doors, and they'd like to see these doors be like a half glass or reduced glass, so that you know, that there's more security in these areas. And then here's a picture, and the pictures don't do it justice. You could see, you know, this is the learning commons. You could see some of the staining that's happened, and they've done a good job keeping them clean. They're actually really good condition considering how old they are, but there's no pile left in them. We were there today looking at it. We joked that maybe at one point they were shag carpets, but and they're not anymore. It's almost like a linoleum now, but they're in need of replacement. And this is the guidance office here. And this picture doesn't show it, but there is staining showing up throughout this area. While we were there, we were talking that if it could fit into the not to exceed budget, we'd recommend painting the learning commons, that space, while you're doing the carpet in that area. It's a good time to refresh the paint in there, so you're not
Before we replace the carpet.
before we replace it, so you're not dropping paint on that later. Again, that would be an item that could hopefully be absorbed in the not to exceed, but it was not part of the original estimate that Harvey had priced. It was something we noticed today that would be a good thing to try to include if the budget could handle it. Alderman Dowd, is this a time to look at a motion to discussion?
Well,
or
we could do it different places, but this is probably as good as not. I'd accept the motion to do the items that were just mentioned in Mr. Willette's presentation at the Fairgrounds Middle School on a not to exceed $350,000. Who'd like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Wilshire made the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have
Yes.
one question. What's happening to the 16 tables? Where do they go? Oh, the 16 tables.
the
that's gonna
existing
be-
tables?
Yes, that's going to be replaced.
I always let all the other principals in the school district know that those are available. The last batch that became available last summer, a good number of them are already snapped up by other principals, so I'll do
Okay.
the same thing this time. If nobody wants them, then I let my fellow facility directors in the state know about it.
We tend to not throw anything away.
Good.
So, any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, you're on, Jamie.
Okay. Over at Pennachuck, construction's ongoing, and I think Ken from Harvey will have a presentation for that, so I'm not going to really take his thunder on the construction update. But I did want to mention that we have furniture bidding ongoing right now, and expect to have some bids next Monday for the furniture package. The proposed furniture is similar to what was used at Fairgrounds, in some cases it's the same pieces, different colors. We had issued documents to at least 4 interested vendors, and the city also posted the bidding documents on their website for any additional vendors that may be interested. As I mentioned, bids are due next week, and we're looking at a phased install for those, which would happen the end of August, or middle to end of August, 2 weeks in there, and then the end of December, which coincides with the construction schedules for a couple of those areas. What will happen is we'll receive the bids, we'll analyze them, and then we're hoping at the next board meeting here, the JSSBC, we can bring back that for a recommendation to you folks.
So we look for qualified bidders look for experience with them before, because we had issues in the high school, this school, actually, with chairs in the cafeteria that fell apart. So we're very careful about buying furniture now, at least on the building project center. So,
I do have one question. So we're not.
All- yes.
I'm sorry.
Alderman Timmons.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Dow. My question is, the furniture is not from the same vendor that you used before for the other project, for the fairground project?
The vendor can be of, so we don't know who's going to bid. The vendors are the people that are going to bid on it.
Right.
The furniture selections are, the basis of design is for the same products that were used over at Fairgrounds. So it's tried and true, tested over at Fairgrounds for a year now.
Right.
It's furniture that we at Harriman know has been proven for a long period of time. The vendor that is the proposed vendor is called KI Furniture. They're one of the top of the line educational facilities furniture providers. When I say vendor, I'm actually referring to the person that will procure it from the furniture company, ship it, install it, set it up, connect it if it's there's things like maybe a fridge or something in some of the rooms at Pennachuck that they'd connect, and they'd be responsible for the term of warranty of it as well. So
Thank you.
The other thing we have to be careful is furniture can have long lead times, especially right now.
Furniture's a tough one because there's a lot of comparable or equals that are not. So it's a careful thing that you have to make sure you look at it carefully and get the right stuff. Alderman Dowd's correct. Right now, furniture lead times have been pretty long. I think people have even buying furniture for your own house. You can see what the length of that can be. And so trying to make sure we get it in time for school to happen is something that's important as well. This particular furniture company has a good lead time, procurement. There was some items that were delayed at Fairgrounds. That was kind of the onslaught of delays. And so they've kind of indicated to us what that lead time is right now, and getting it for that first round, first phase of things is getting tight right now, based on the information that we're given. So I will say, even in that case, the school has furniture set in place for the expected students that will be starting in September, because I don't believe that there's any transitions happening at that time to try increasing the population. So they should have the furniture that they need for the September, no matter if the new stuff comes in or not.
I was thinking in terms of equity, so.
Yeah, so the stuff so to answer your question, the furniture that's in the bid package matches for the most part. There are some different pieces because there might be a different color selection, different types of, as an example, you can see on the top right picture, there's cafeteria tables. The principals and administration at that school prefers the octagon tables or the hexagon tables. I can't see what that many sides there are, versus the long straight tables. Those tables fit better into their space and maybe the straight tables that were at Fairgrounds. So there is a little bit of difference, but it's still the same type of furniture, same intent of furniture.
Thank you.
All right, all set? Good, James.
All right. And the last piece here is the new middle
Only
school.
wish that was an aerial picture of an existing school.
And while we were gone for a month, the school got built. There's a picture of it.
Nice.
Completed that schedule.
So as Alderman Dowd had mentioned early in the presentation here, that the alteration of terrain permit was received just this week. That was quite the undertaking, with lots of response back and forth with Department of Environmental Services in New Hampshire. And I think we gave the last of the responses that were needed this week, and we got that. So that's a major milestone to get this project underway. You can't do anything on the site until you get that approval. So that is excellent to see. We are also working with the city on the building permit. We don't necessarily need the building permit to start working on the site, but once you start digging for the foundations, you should have it by then. The elements that so we've kind of resolved most of the comments. I think some of the things that are remaining are just a few final documents sent back to the city for the planning board approval that already had occurred. So we're just kind of getting that information procured back to them so they have that information. We don't anticipate any issues with that. Just trying to finalize that. And we have a little bit of time, at least a month to kind of resolve everything. We're hoping to do that much quicker than that, so.
So we have the required permits for cutting and stumping, right? Thank you.
Okay, so that
I made a couple of phone calls today to make sure that was happening.
That was a discussion that happened over the past few days. We were waiting for the city approval to start, doing some of the clearing for that area. So that apparently has come in. That's excellent. Design updates. I'm not actually even sure why I had that bullet. There's no real design updates happening. I know that we're keeping up with the civil portion. So as part of that DES correspondence going back and forth, it does inherently change the design a little bit here and there. So we're putting we've got it all to them. Now we've got to get it back together and send it to Harvey so they can review any changes that may have occurred through that process with DES. It does change things like underground drainage structures and stuff like that. So they need to review that and make sure that it's captured in their scopes. And then submittals and RFIs, Harvey has been, and for those of you that may or may not know, submittals are again the item. They're just sending in shop drawings or product data, dimensional information on the products that they intend to use. And so Harriman reviews that to make sure it meets the intent of the contract documents. And if it does, we respond with either an approved or, revise and resubmit, and they resubmit back. So it's a little bit of a process. But we want to make sure that everything's kind of vetted again, kind of a second round, because we have different choices of products that may be selected out of our specs. And so we want to make sure that what's coming in meets what the intent of the spec is. And then RFIs are requests for information. So if there's something that's not clear or they're unsure of something, they'll send in a question to us. We provide response. They have quite a few submittals that have come through. I mean, a lot of them. We're pushing through as much as we can. There's quite a few still outstanding, but we're trying to get them quickly done. We're trying to keep up with that pace, and so it's an ongoing process. All part of the process.
Just a couple things. This is 4 floors here because there's a grade down, and this area is, what are we calling that area?
That's the autism program. In the lower level there, that I think I mentioned before, but I always forget which group I spoke to. Sunset Heights which is elementary portion of the school, has a autism program, and what was conveyed at the time of approval of this project was that there was a gap in the middle school level, and so that lower level there was brought into this part of the building. Was capturing that space to provide some of that space.
The other part that I think we've talked about before, the security, you can segregate this portion of the school from the other portion for security. So you can use the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and all of that, all the offices, without anybody having access to the actual classrooms.
Yeah, that's similar to Fairgrounds has that. Actually,
Fairgrounds
Pennachuck
does.
does too, but Fairgrounds is a good example because it does kind of have that sort of like pinwheel shape, but there's a set of doors that happens between the classroom wings and then kind of the public side of the building. At Fairgrounds is a good example of that. Pennachuck does have it too as well, though. So. All right.
So before we're done, Mr. Sullivan, want to make any comments about Fairgrounds? I know you really like the gym.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. I enjoyed our tour today. Thank you very much. All 3 of my kids went to Fairgrounds, and the last time I was in Fairgrounds, between my kids going there, coaching biddy basketball, fabulous job. We went with Alderman Camo as well, and I think he used the word dungeon a couple times back in the day. I would agree with that it was a little dark and it needed some upgrading. So great job. We did a great job on our color selection too. We found salmon and we found sea foam and we found all sorts of great colors in the hallway, so it was really good. So kudos.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Really well done.
Oh. Jamie, you all set?
I am, thank you.
All right, construction managers report. Ken? Oh, yeah, I changed.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Dowd. Thank you, Jamie. So Jamie kind of walked you through the design portion of the furniture over at Pennachuck. So I will give you an overview of how things are going in the field over there, as I did last month, and we'll start to kind of incorporate the new middle school. As they mentioned, we got the alteration of terrain permit. So right now we're kind of working through making sure we're crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is with the permitting and with the state to kind of get our ducks in a row before we mobilize, probably next week to begin cutting trees. So it'll be, we cleared a lot of hurdles this week, and I think it's a good way to start the project strong. So I'll give you, everyone here, a quick update on Pennachuck Middle School. So I kind of gave everybody an overview of the areas that were completed, the chorus addition and the boiler room. Those were turned over in November. The three areas that we're working on right now, the south addition, that is going to be turned over in April of 2022. We're well ahead of that. We're pretty much working on the finishes. I'll kind of walk everybody through the specifics for each edition, but I just want to give an overview of where things stand now. Again, these photos were taken, I believe, in early January, so things have progressed quite a bit. The North Classroom edition right here, I'll walk through the specifics for each item, but that will be turned over this summer and be ready for the beginning of school in September. Right here, the existing portable will be removed during April vacation, and that'll allow us to begin excavation for the new learning commons, kind of located right there at the kind of right where that circle is located. And then this summer we do have quite a bit of renovations going on inside the school. All of the hallways get a general facelift, flooring, new ceilings, brand new lockers, new cafeteria flooring, many renovations inside the cafeteria, and all new finishes and a refurbished gym floor. So similar to Fairgrounds, everything will look the same in Pennachuck. And then we'll also be doing the final signalization at the entrance of the school off of Manchester Street, and that'll begin as soon as summer vacation starts. I believe it's June 21st. Sounds like, or I think it's June 17th, and then it sounds like there's going to be a snow day tomorrow, so we'll have to wait one more day. So moving into the South Addition exterior progress. The building envelope and brick veneer has all been completed. All of the windows are currently installed, so the heat has been tied in there. We've now started holding all of our owner, client, architect meetings inside one of the south classrooms. All of the aluminum storefront has been completed. So when we say storefront, it's kind of the upper left-hand corner at both ends of the new additions. It's the new aluminum entrances with the nice windows in each of the learning student commons areas. All of the roofing is complete, and this summer we'll complete the metal roof edging along as we tie things up once the weather kind of is more cooperative. All the metal and concrete wall panels that we have started the aluminum wall panels, and we are waiting for the tactile concrete panels to arrive in another month or so, but that will not hold up occupancy for the students after April vacation.
So that's for this area that you see in the blue?
Again, that's just one of the difficulties with the market that we were just discussing, that Jamie was mentioning with the furniture. we're also running into that with various concrete materials where we're scheduled to receive them and then we get a phone call saying that we're not receiving them. So it's kind of one of those volatile situations that we kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then for those of you who are familiar with the school and who have been there, kind of for the bus traffic and safety of students and parents, we have these, we have the Jersey barriers that have been located along the bus loop area. We'll be removing those next week. So the buses will be able to have a little more room to drive, and we'll be scooching our fence in a little bit to give everybody a little more room, kind of inching towards more of the final design.
Yeah, so these, and the fence is coming down too, right? Or just moving back?
The fence will be kind of nudged in towards the building,
Yeah,
because
so
we'll
you
still
get
have
the
to
double
install
bus
the-
lane, so buses will have better room to maneuver.
Right.
Oh,
They're doing a great job with this current setup, but this will certainly give them a little more room to operate.
The other thing is, these barriers that were bought as part of the project, they're going to the landfill, so that they will retain, the city will retain them for use, not necessarily downtown.
Thank you. Was that wide enough for two
Yep.
buses to go? It doesn't look it.
You know how to drive it, they do.
It was a learning curve. There was a learning curve. Moving to the interior of the South Addition. Again, it's kind of frustrating because these pictures are over 2 weeks old. So, you know, there's just so much more progress that is currently in place. But the bathrooms are substantially complete. The single-user bathrooms, you can see an example of that in on the right side of the screen there. All that really remains is final paint and cleaning in those areas. Prime and first coat of paint has been completed in all areas of the South Addition, and we're currently installing all of the architectural millwork, countertops, and lab casework right now, and that will be taking place over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Since these photos were taken, all of the acoustical ceilings have been installed. I'd say about 90% of them are installed, and the tiles that remain not installed are not in place, so we can perform inspections with the fire department and various code enforcement officials. MEP finishes are all in progress. That's typically outlet covers, registers, grills, diffusers in the ceiling. So those are all things that will be getting in place over the next month or so. All of the flooring has been substantially completed in most of the classroom areas. We try to hold off installing them in the corridors because that's the heavy traffic areas for construction. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll start getting those installed in those areas. And then eventually, at the beginning of April, we'll begin the inspections, the final cleaning, and the turnover with the staff to begin moving furniture in and getting teachers situated. We are going to be moving 2 of the teachers from the portable that we'll be demolishing into one of the brand new spaces in there. So I'm sure they'll be excited to have a new classroom.
If any members of the joint special want to get a tour, it'll have to be small groups, because you have to wear hard hats. So that'll be a requirement, and in the new areas, you don't have to wear masks, because it doesn't belong to the schools yet. In the regular school, you do until Tuesday. The other thing is that, just for the Board of Ed members, some of the tiles in the school are painted, you know, artwork or whatever. It's not allowed anymore by fire code, so those have to be replaced. We're not throwing the pictures away. We're going to let the school determine where they want to do with them, but they can't be in the ceilings. And any school, so there'll be other schools that'll be impacted as well.
Just to highlight in the upper left-hand corner, one of the 6th grade classrooms. So those 2 classrooms can be separated by a folding partition that kind of tucks inside the wall on the left there. So it can be opened up for one large classroom if there's a need to do so. So it's a very usable space. The classrooms are very large. I think everyone's going to be very happy there.
Or if you had a group of citizens that needed to talk to you.
Couple other photos is a special education learning kitchen located at the east end of the new South Addition. You can see some of the new science tables and casework in one of the 6th grade science classrooms. Brand new mechanical room with all of the equipment serving the South Addition. There's a mirrored one in the North Addition as well. And then here's an example of the student commons located at the West Addition, or west side of the South Addition. You can see it's a nice usable space. I believe there's gonna be projectors in there and room for collaborative workspace. We also did a renovation when we completed the renovation or the construction of the new chorus addition. Majority of those students and teachers moved into that new space, and we were able to renovate the health and music keyboard classrooms. So this area is now substantially complete, but there are some remaining items that we really can't get to until school vacation. So next week we'll be completing all the flooring, all of the countertop install, some sprinkler head work, getting the fire department in there to do final inspections, and then once we get the approval from the code officials, we'll be able to install all the acoustical ceilings in that area. And we'll be able to turn it over at the beginning of March, but I believe the school, speaking with Principal Falzerano, I don't think they plan on using this space until after April vacation. So it'll be ready for them, but we'll just coordinate with them to make sure it's ready when they need it. Moving over to the North Addition at the exterior. So again, yesterday it was 65 degrees, so we didn't need to have the winter conditions tenting over there. That allows us to install do all the exterior work that's temperature dependent. You see on the right-hand side of the screen is that silver product is the air vapor barrier. Again, that just keeps all of the wet stuff out of the building. It allows the building to breathe. We believe it has to be above 40 degrees to install that, so that we will heat the space inside of that tent and work inside of it. So today we had to have the heat on. Yesterday we didn't. It's life in New England. So this is since, again, these pictures are only 2 weeks old, but the roof as of today was substantially complete, just in time for the snow. We have roughly 85% of the windows installed. Most of the AVB is installed. One section of the brick veneer is installed, so we'll be breaking that tent down, washing the brick, and then setting up the next section to complete. And that is moving along. So we should be able to wrap all this, the exterior work out, most of it in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And again, the North Addition will be turned over, I believe at the end of June, ready for the end of summer break. And then inside is not much to look at. We have most of the light gauge metal framing has been completed inside. The MEP rough-in of running a lot of the pipe we're in very good shape inside. Most of it has been completed, even with the cold temperatures of the last few weeks. And I'll have more photos to kind of show the progress in here next week. Any questions on construction updates in Penchuck?
Seeing none? All right, you want to address the PCCO number 8?
Sure. Okay, so just to give everybody, I know I did a brief lesson on all the different acronyms that we use in construction. So if you remember, last month this committee approved two PCOs, and that's a potential change order, and that basically is the mechanism that allows Harvey to allow our contractors to proceed with the work, order materials, and begin the process. What this PCCO is, it's a prime contract change order, and it's a formality document that incorporates the previously approved PCOs into the overall project budget. So any item that I bring forward in a PCCO for Pennachuck is only comprised of items that were already presented and approved by this committee. So the PCCO number 8 that I'm bringing forth for approval tonight incorporates PCO number 30, which is 5 additional parking spaces at the new Learning Commons. That'll be completed in summer of 2022 for a total of $10,103.27, and PCO 31 for revised garage access. This is basically miscellaneous improvements at the garage area located kind of adjacent to the track area at Pennachuck for a total of $22,623.97. With those two PCOs total together, this PCCO number 8 is a total of $32,727.24.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve PCCO number 8 in the amount of $32,727.24. Alderman, would you have discussion, or do you want to
No,
make the motion?
I want to make the motion.
Alderman
Okay.
Timmons has made the motion. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Ken?
That's it for me. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so RFP submissions. John, you handling that?
Yeah, I believe in your package was a copy of the RFP that went on the street for the furniture. It was more of an FYI. Bids are due next week. As we discussed, or as the architect discussed, the basis of the bid is KI Furniture, which is a good brand, well proven. It's what we used at Fairgrounds Middle School. So that was for an FYI. The next item, the Liberty Energy Incentive, we did receive a check. Just looking for the amount, if you pardon me for a second here. It was actually on a financial sheet. So this is an incentive for installing energy efficiency devices. Could be for insulation, that sort of thing. It was a partial payment because we'll receive the second payment after Harvey completes their work this summer. So that check was for $13,680. That goes in as a credit to the construction job. So it's actually money in instead of out. Okay. Go ahead, as I move ahead. Okay. So the next item I have to talk about is the Franklin Street proposed bonding. And everybody should have a hard copy of this, and it was emailed to you a couple of days ago. Particularly for those of you that are new to this, I'll give you the history of the school. So we've had an alternative high school program for many years. I've been in this position for almost 25 years, and I believe that alternative program has been here for that long. It started out at the South High School, may have been somewhere before that for all I know, and then we've rented space ever since. We moved to the Boys and Girls Club in the early 2000s, rented space on Amherst Street down there where Portland Glass currently is. Moved up to Merrimack High School and rented space from there. There were some red buildings, and they called it the Brentwood program. And we basically, that program shut down, and we took it over, and we moved it back to Nashua to another location on Amherst Street, which is in a building that used to be used by Hesser College. So it's near Bertucci's restaurant, if you're familiar with that. So we wanted to find a permanent home for that program. Rising rental costs were also a factor in us wanting to find a place to put it. At the same time, we've got a preschool program, and that's been a growing program across the city. And it's been decentralized, it's been in various elementary schools. And the desire by the program was to bring all that together for efficiency and make it more effective. A lot of the OT, PT people and the nurses, everybody, instead of having to have multiple people working in different elementary schools, we could put them in one location. And those were the efficiencies that we would see. So there was a desire to bring those two programs together. One more item, we had a Title I program at a local church up at the top of Main Street for many, many years, I think, again, as long as I've been here. And we wanted to move that to a permanent location as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that one later. So we started looking for a permanent home for them about those programs for about 2 years ago. And this past winter, we bought 55 Franklin Street. Harriman actually did an assessment of the building for us before we purchased it. Had what we term as very good bones, very well built. It was built in the late 60s. It was actually Nashua Corp originally owned the building. But most recently it was used as Nashua Christian Academy. And I think it was Grace Fellowship that ran that program. So our plan was to then house the high school alternative program, which we're now calling the Brentwood Academy, on the 3rd floor of the building. And the preschool program would occupy the 1st and 2nd floors, along with part of the basement. The title program I talked about earlier was at the church. We moved that to Broad Street in space vacated by the preschool program that moved to Franklin Street. So last summer and last spring and summer, my department renovated and cleaned the building with the assistance of a lot of subcontractors to bring it up to our standards and also meet the building code. We had a lot of work, and actually the Harriman, we used a lot of the suggestions they had and that's some of their design ideas. So we installed new fire alarm, public address, intercom, and telephone systems. Thorough cleaning. The floor tile was brown. We turned it into white. It was quite a transformation. So the fire department, however, so there was a but. The fire department determined that the high school students could not use the same means of egress as preschoolers for emergency egress. So we could not house the preschool on the 2nd floor. The concern there is, in an emergency, if you have high schoolers running down the 2 stairwells, they would run over the little kids. So certainly plausible, in an emergency and there's a fire, that sort of thing could happen. So worked with Brentwood Academy, moved into spaces on the 3rd floor, as I indicated. We didn't use the 2nd floor, so we could only move preschool classrooms from one school, that was Broad Street. And they were on the 1st floor, and we had to put their OT, PT program in the basement. We actually had some preliminary designs done by Harriman last summer for the emergency egress towers. Harvey priced them. It was well beyond any sort of money that we could do at the time on short notice, so we tabled that for then. Our main focus was to get the school open as much as we could. So the need to provide the emergency egress stairwells was the original driving force for this particular bond. But we have other facility issues that we've identified. Harriman conducted the assessment about a year and a half ago now, and those were ADA compliance in the bathrooms, stairwells, building access, replacing the roof, floor replacement, and asbestos abatement. A lot of asbestos in the flooring, both asbestos tile, where we have carpet. It's very old carpet, needs to be replaced, but held down by mastic, which contains asbestos as well. One of the tricky things with the walls is we found that the joint compound used on the sheetrock contained asbestos. which made things difficult. And you'll see we have a plan to address part of that. So the HVAC system was very old, but it was still functioning. We felt comfortable at least bringing the programs in that we did. We had a long-range plan to replace that. Talk about pennies from heaven, it was a bad thing, the pandemic, but it did create this ESSER funding. And we were able to apply for that funding. We were approved by the state, and we're actually replacing the entire HVAC system this summer. That's being done by a separate party, a company called EEI, which for those of you on the Board of Ed, is the same company that did the energy efficiency work at the 2 high schools this past year. Which incidentally, we received 2 rebate checks from them from Eversource in the past month of almost $1 million. So a lot of money. That's a good thing. So still staying with the history, this body approved Harriman as the architect and engineering firm for the project, and they also approved Harvey as the construction manager. We recently, actually the Board of Ed put out RFP and awarded contracts to the Engineering Corporation for traffic analysis and a company called SLR International for geotechnical engineering. I'll talk a little bit more about traffic analysis later, but we need the geotech information so that Harriman can use that information to design the towers. Because we're going to be digging, we're putting in steel and footings and all that stuff. So that's why we're actually doing that work next Tuesday morning. We'll still have to hire some more consultants, the industrial hygienists, because of the asbestos. Harvey will need a construction testing firm for any steel erection. We want to do commissioning of the HVAC, and then surveying is there as a placeholder in case we need to do something else. Since I'll talk about traffic analysis in a second. So these are the things I'd like to do. I think we should do. I'm recommending we do, put it that way. Summer of 2022, install the emergency egress stairwells at either end of the school. Replace restroom fixtures and add ADA bathrooms in the building. Replace or augment the stairwell handrails. You'll see a picture later on, and I'll explain that a little bit further. Install a handicap ramp at the main entrance. There are some modifications to the room and hallways on all the floors. So the staff has been there for a little over half a year. They've already identified some things they'd like to tweak, and Harriman has already incorporated those into the design. If you've been by the school, you can see the dumpster sticking out on the west side of the building like a sore thumb. It needs to be an enclosure, it needs a pad. The Brentwood program has indicated a desire to have at least some sort of outside activity, a basketball court, a half court or something. And as I'll talk about a little bit further, we have a lot of traffic congestion, and we have a need to improve the safety around the site. So all that comes up with this number. Harriman has put together schematic drawings, given those to Harvey, and their estimate to do all that work. They have contingencies built in and whatnot, is the top number, so $3,779,861. Harriman has already provided their fee for this job. That's the $238,500. I've estimated the various professional consultants. I listed those previously on that other slide: traffic consultant, surveying, hygienist, etc. FF&E, furniture, furnishings, and equipment. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We've talked about contingency earlier, and what we had left over at Fairgrounds Middle School. I'm proposing that for this location. We're hiring a traffic firm, putting aside, I think it was about 5% of construction for that. And then there's some miscellaneous items. Storage units, you've seen the ground storage units around any construction site. That's what that is. So get into pretty pictures now so you can see what I'm talking about. The left-hand photo shows the east side of the building. At the very foreground is the playground that already exists. They've already bought a playground structure, which we installed this summer. So the Egress Tower will be on that corner, pretty close to the corner of the school. It's kind of in the middle is the part of the ventilation system. That's the venting, so we can't cover that. So it's going to be very close to the right-hand side. The right-hand picture shows the west end of the school, and the Egress Tower will be to the, you can see the door, exterior door, it'll be to the left of that. Looking at it from the top down, see the egress stairways on either side, and also the handicap ramp that will be at the front entrance. Another view, those are the stairwells. It's kind of designed. Question for you, Jamie, it's come up. Is there any desire or is there any thought towards covering the stairs?
I think that would be a discussion with the school to see how they'd like to address that. There's not currently in the design, but certainly that could ease maintenance and other avenues.
Yeah. Might be, yeah, additional costs certainly, but wintertime egress might be something to think about. Stairwells, so you can see these handrails on either side. Those, as I mentioned, this was Nashua Christian Academy before. They had a lot of high school students. I'm not sure what grade levels were there completely, but these handrails are ones that you and I would use. So imagine preschoolers going down these stairwells. There's nothing for them to hold on to. So we're going to have to add lower rails for them. These are the current restrooms. They're not in terrible shape, but they're, again, made for adults. We have to lower some of the fixtures so that the little kids can get in them and use them, wash their hands, etc. I talked about the dumpster before. This is what we put, and we need to put an enclosure around that and use a pad. Talking about traffic safety. So this is the postage stamp, and whoever had that little, who had the little button? Rick did. You point this. So that's a school, and it's surrounded on the east by Charles. On the west, I'm sorry, by Charles Street. So left-hand side is Charles Street. The bottom is Franklin Street. That's the name of the school. On the right is Locust, and then behind the school on the top is Winter Street. So just keep that layout in mind. To the right of all that are parking lots. And those are owned by the church. That the first lot is used by the people across the street from us, but the next two lots are being used. We have an easement to use those. Basically, the easement is used them during the school day until about 6 o'clock, and we should not be using them on the weekends. There are about 7 or 8 parking spaces directly behind the school on Winter Street that staff use back there. Yeah.
That street's not in very good shape, man. One of the things we're working with DPW to get it paved and pave the parking as well.
So on the left-hand side, that's the view back up Franklin Street. The far end of the street is Main Street, and you're looking kind of at the main entrance of the school. Currently, all the drop-off occurs in the front of the school, right here by the parents. It's 2-lane road. If you have people queued up on the lane coming towards you, you can see there's no room really for cars coming from behind them to pass. You've got parents popping out of their car to run around and let out the kids that are in the back seat, and it's not the safest situation. As they exit that, they go up Charles Street. And the buses for the Brentwood Academy stop adjacent to that entrance that's near the dumpster. That's how those students get into the building. They go up the stairwell to the 3rd floor. Again, those buses are stopping on the street and block traffic. Oops, went the wrong way, sorry. The left two pictures are both Winter Street. So this is the street in the back. It is flanked on the left-hand side, as I'm looking at the left-hand picture, by housing, those single-family homes. A lot of the times, yeah, it's on the right-hand, middle picture, they're on the right-hand side. Many times they are, not many, well, occasionally you see them parking on the street, as is their right. For the most part, they do park in their driveways. But if they are parking in the street, it's very difficult for anybody to get past. It becomes a single lane road in that case. Then the far right-hand picture is a look up Locust Street, and that's just the corner, and you'd be sitting in the playground looking up that way. Sorry. So what we want the traffic analysis to do is I'm going to bring us all the way back to this one, is they're going to be out, in fact, they were out there today counting noses, counting cars, just viewing what was going on. And we want them to provide some recommendations to us on how to alleviate that, how to make it better. We've talked some amongst ourselves of how to make it better. For example, we could turn Winter Street into a one-way street. You could put, and these things would require aldermanic action. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but
Yeah, we'd need aldermanic to make this a one-way street.
Right.
If we're gonna use this for drop-off here, we'll move these parking cars to somewhere else, and the buses will be able to, or cars will be able to pull in, and there's a door right there.
yeah, and we've talked about no parking on the street during school hours. There's various things that we can do. The traffic consultant's got to provide those recommendations.
We did have an issue on cars coming down the street, and there is a stop sign here, but evidently nobody wants to observe a stop sign, so they were going around. So we positioned the boy in blue right here. They soon got the idea it was not cost-effective to go through that stop sign.
So there's not a whole lot of room on the site, and one other idea could be after you go, if you're coming right to left as a parent and dropping off your child, you could, as you just get past the main entrance, we could cut into the grassed area and have a place where they could pull off. That's just one idea of how to get, at least when they're dropping off, they don't have to open their door into traffic and go get their kid. So
Right now, the cars, when they're dropping the students off, park right here, it blocks that lane. You know, cars go around them, and people coming down this way, it was not a good thing for safety, and sometimes parents have to open doors on both sides of the car. So we're working with DPW to see what we can do to make an area where they can drop kids off and not block that lane.
we're looking at a similar thing with the buses. There's only 3 buses right now, I believe. Can we cut into that grassed area on the left-hand side of the school to give them a little place to turn off as well, and get them out of traffic?
Also, I could be wrong, but I think this building is where the parole officers are.
Yes.
And when we put a cruiser here, they asked us if we not do that as often because their patients were getting all upset that the police were there.
The public defendants are on the
Public defendants, yeah.
top floor. So these are just smaller pictures of miscellaneous things to do. You have the main entrance. Can't really tell, but the stairs going into the school are spalling quite a bit.
Needs to be fixed.
The overhang, the underside of the overhang is falling apart. The roof above the overhang needs to be replaced. That whole assembly needs to be looked at. The next picture to the right is the rear entrance. Same thing with the overhang. To the left of the overhang, there's an overhead door we're replacing with a double door instead.
There used to be a big hole right here, and DPW filled it in for us and paved it.
I've talked about miscellaneous, the staff has worked with a school for 6 months now. The conference room is on the second floor. Right now, it's wide open. They'd like to close that in, so they have a little more privacy and quiet. Right where that column is, or just beyond the column, is where one of the ADA bathrooms would be. There are single bathrooms on each floor, which were, I think, labeled handicap at one point. But the way they're situated, Jamie, you can jump in any time. You can't open them into the hallway because then they interrupt egress up and down the hallway. And you can't open them in and have a person in the wheelchair be able to maneuver because there's not enough room. So that's forcing us to create new ADA bathrooms. Did I get that right? Okay. I'm doing this long enough, I get this stuff. A lot of old water fountains throughout the facility, we need to replace those. We have tested the water, by the way. It's come back clean. The lead content is below any thresholds that we have to be concerned about. But the fountains are very old. Next few pictures are down in the basement. Nice ceramic floor tile down there. Again, they want to, it's pretty much wide open. They like to close that in. Both on the first picture is on the right-hand side as you're going from west to east. Left-hand side is, looks pretty cluttered, but actually in inclement days, that's where they take all the preschool kids. They have a playground, but that's where they go down to play. And it's also a place where they use some of the autistic kids, some of the special ed kids, they work out in that particular area. We see the scaffolding that used to be, there still is a stage down there, and that was the lighting booth, so we're going to repurpose that and make that either an office or storage area. And then fire extinguishers are throughout the facility, as they should be, but they're also hanging on hooks. And you're all familiar with the clientele we have, particularly on the third floor. We don't want those to become projectiles or whatever. So we're suggesting as part of this project, we put those in cabinets behind a door. But we would do that throughout the facility. So proposing to do bulk of that work summer 22, so this summer. Some things would not occur this summer. The asbestos-containing flooring and carpeting, the sheetrock walls on the third floor, the roof membrane would, and then we want to put solar panels on the facility. That would occur summer 2023. The solar panels would not cost this project anything. We would use the same solar company we used at Fairgrounds Middle School, have online for Pennachuck and for the new middle school. And it's a program that the city actually went out and did a competitive procurement for, and we basically leased the panels from them. Talked about reflooring. This very old carpet. Alderman Sullivan, the carpet you saw at Fairgrounds Middle School, it was old. This makes that look young. And the tile, you really can't tell, but those 8x8 tiles are asbestos. One of the issues with the third floor with the asbestos containing wallboard is occasionally some of our, how should I put it, Anthony? Some of our clientele get a little rambunctious, and they like to put holes in walls, and it's when you're dealing with asbestos, that becomes very expensive. So I have a guy on staff that can do asbestos abatement for very limited amounts. It's usually a linear amount or a square footage amount. We have to bring a contractor in to fix this stuff. So we think the best long-term solution is just to remove that sheetrock and replace it. And that's in that contract number that you saw earlier. But we're just proposing to do that on the third floor. So in that project, I've talked about contingencies already. I don't think I really need to talk about it too much more. It was 10% was our regular construction contingency, both for the architect and us. And then the 5% was for the traffic, whatever comes from the consultant. And the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. A lot of the preschool kids are, I think most of their furniture is coming with them, but I'm not positive. We have some furniture in the facility, but some of it's donated by Nashua Christian Academy, so it's getting kind of old. And the architect and us have to look at it and make recommendations to you on what should be replaced and what kept. So for right now, we just have that as a placeholder. Talked a little bit earlier about the HVAC system. So Energy Efficient Inc., EI, is replacing the HVAC system because most of the, everybody know what I'm talking about when I say HVAC? So heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Since much of that is above the ceilings, all the ceilings that we just replaced this past summer, that all has to come down. When they're doing that, they're going to be doing above the ceilings a lot of asbestos piping. That all has to come out. So they're going to be doing all the abatement of that, removing all the old equipment, and then installing new. So that pays for the abatement, it pays for the new HVAC system. Because all the ceilings are coming down, ESSER funding will pay for the new lighting, which is going to be LED lighting. Very similar to what you've seen us install at Fairgrounds and Middle School, which you'll see us put in at Pennachuck. And part of the electrical distribution system. Some of the main electrical distribution that comes into this facility is very, very, very old, 1960 vintage, so we're looking to replace that. Like everything else, it's with miniaturation of stuff. I mean, you think about your computers. You used to have a big thing like this, and now your phone does the same work. Well, electricity is kind of the same thing. It's really ratcheted down in size and taking up a lot of needless space. So what EEI has already done is we've installing a new fuel-efficient boiler for perimeter heating. That's already work begun. And they've already started work on the second, third floor. We've established mechanical spaces, and with Harriman's design helping with that. And they're going to be starting work during April break on the second floor. Worked with the program to get everybody off the second floor. Right now, we can't have any kids, but we do have the preschool director up there and a couple of her staff. So they're all going to be relocated within the school. And then we'll totally vacate the second floor and let the contractor do their work. They're getting concerned about getting everything done for the beginning of the next school year, so this will help them do that.
So, are there any questions? Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you. The 4.9 million is what we're going to bond. How much are you using in ESSER funds?
Currently, we're looking at about $6 million.
6 million?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alderman Sullivan?
I had several, if that's okay.
Sure.
How long have they been in there occupying I'm just looking for a timeline. How long have students and staff been in the Franklin Street School right now?
Since the beginning of the school year. So say September 1st.
Of 21?
Of 21, yes.
When you say the summer of 23, you really mean this coming summer of 22, but fiscal year 23? Is that because the fiscal year starts July 1?
July 1.
July 1. So it's really summer of 20.
Summer of 22.
Okay.
Well, there's work taking place both summers. So I see a lot of the work happening this summer, but because the ESSER work, all the HVAC work is happening this summer, all involves stuff happening in the overhead. we can't be doing the floors at the same time. There just isn't enough room. So in talking with Harvey and Harriman, we just decided some stuff has to wait till summer of 2023.
So with all,
Fiscal years at all, I was talking physical calendar years.
right, so with the construction kind of going all that time, do students and staff stay in the building while you do it? Because you're going to be doing a lot of asbestos abatement and whatnot?
Just summertime work.
Just summertime work?
The only exception to that is the work on the second floor starting in April vacation break.
Okay,
And we've already discussed that with the contractor, no abatement whatsoever with anybody in the school. It'll be during that vacation break, and if they want to do anything beyond that, it has to be on weekends. Nobody can be in the school.
okay. Sorry for all the questions.
No problem.
The bond need of 4.9 million, and this would, I guess, go to you, Chairman Dowd, about being on the Budget Committee. Is this money going to be factored into the fiscal year 23 budget?
Yes and no. First of all, I'll be putting in the legislation for the bond, and I'd rather make it rounded at 5 million. And that's to cover unknown unknowns. And again, if we don't spend bond money, it goes back, it can be used for other things. It doesn't disappear. And we also don't use it for frivolous things either. So I would, at some point tonight, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve my going forward with a $5 million bond for the things that were just discussed. That will go, the legislation will go to the Board of Aldermen, and it will have a first reading, and it'll be assigned a budget. Happens to be my committee, and you're on it, right? And then she's on it too. And then we discuss it, and then approve. If we approve it, it goes back to, or either way, it goes back to the full board for final approval. And it becomes part of the bonding plan, which I'm hoping I can get you guys to have a detailed explanation of. I worked with the bonding plan and treasurer for debt for a long time. And it's sort of complicated, and it takes a while to understand it, but when we go in for a $6 million bond, we don't go out and spend, go out and sell the bonds for $6 million first day. No. They sell the bonds when they have to. As things get spent, so if it's a 2-year project, they're not probably bonding for 2-3 years. And we have what's a debt service on the bonds, and we keep that in a range. And it doesn't fluctuate too much, and it's right now and for the number of years, it's in such a good position financially for the city that's why we have AAA bond ratings with all the services. That's unique for a city of our size and other size. So we get bond ratings, we've been getting bond ratings under 2%. That may go up a little, but, and usually when we go into the legislation, David Fredette, who's very frugal, always puts in that we're going to be like paying 4%, but, so anyway, it'll be less than, probably around 2%. But that's fitted into the debt service. So the person, and actually David Fredette's still working a couple days a week, so they calculate when they have to sell the bonds and have the monies available, and they keep that debt service level. So it really doesn't impact the budget for fiscal 23 or 24 or anything, because that number's pretty constant and it's always in the budget to pay off the bonds. The other thing is these schools, believe it or not, are coming up on 20 years. And this project, I think the high schools are 174 million, and that's been coming down and is almost ready to be totally paid off. And that's, so that's why that debt service can stay in that range, because things are being paid off that, as we bring on new bonding. And, when we have things that we have to do, that's the way to do it.
Does this, so you talk about debt service, so that goes against even though this is school work, this doesn't go into the school budget, it goes into the.
No, the project has been transferred from the Board of Education to this committee.
Got it.
When the $6 million is approved, it's under the control of this committee, just like the school project right now. So, but it's fitted into the city's bond, with again, complicated bond. I think I have that thing, that the bonds that the city has are in different categories. General bonds for the city for things like paving and that kind of stuff. Then there's bonds for the wastewater treatment plant, but they're all factored in, but they're just controlled differently, which you'll become very familiar with as we get into the new budget.
Right. So my last question, and I don't ask this question to be, curt or wise or anything like that, but I always ask this question in business, which is, what happens if we do nothing? And the only reason I ask that question is to try to put a fine point, to try to justify the costs that we have here, and not only, fixing the bathrooms and making sure that the floor is good, but how does that affect what's going on at the school?
The major expense is the egress towers, and that's a requirement of the fire department, and if we don't do them, we can't use the second floor, which means we can't put all the programs in there, which means it's driving costs in another area, so.
See, this is,
Yeah.
so it causes you to go, well, then we have to relocate this program, which took us so long to get us here, and so that's the only reason I asked the question. That's great, so, thank you for
No,
No problem.
That's good.
all the
Thank you.
questions, thanks.
Oh, well, I had
Okay, sure.
Oh, wow.
Where my
Ms.
sunglasses?
Bishop?
Wake up.
I just had a question about, I know there's an elevator in Franklin Street, but how is
Very
that?
big elevator.
It's big, but are we looking at needing any updates on it or upgrades on it for the people who have ambulation assistance needs?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we are going to adjust the way you can operate the elevator, because right now, anybody can.
Yeah,
And, with the, well, operating the elevator is going to be the school department's issue. But it's a big elevator.
yeah, we were in it when we toured the building, and
Ah,
it
yeah,
was
so
spacious.
it's probably, Jamie, what would you say, it's 3 times the size of a normal elevator? Because it was an industrial building at one
Yeah.
time, so.
Well, how is it going up and down?
No, it was checked out. The elevator is fine. The elevator.
I like
works.
making Jimmy laugh up there.
Most elevators go up and down, yeah.
It works fine. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's definitely a freight elevator.
Okay, so we're not looking at needing, like, we don't need to be addressing that now, we can,
No.
that's
It-
it.
It works fine. It's been inspected
Yeah.
by Stanley or whoever our inspector is.
Okay, cool.
Probably not going to be used for standard.
No, I wouldn't, yeah. But I would like to make sure that it's there and available in case we needed it.
Somebody's handicapped or, breaks their leg and needs to
Mhm.
crutches, have an elevator, so.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
I'm not really sure if this is the appropriate place to ask this question, but I'm not really sure when and where I could. Is it really working out well for it to have the preschool and the OT, PT along with the, the older kids in the upstairs? Is everybody happy with how that's working?
I can't answer that. Who wants to, Mr.?
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike,
Mike?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I've heard no complaints. I don't believe Marsha Bagley has. I mean, they're separated.
Okay, all
So
right,
it
that's
appears
great.
to be working fine, but I'm happy to double check
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
to make sure
and
that's still the case.
Some of the minor concerns they had are the things that we're addressing here, like the ramp in the front, fixing the cement steps, all of these things are just fixing things to make it better for them to use the building, so, but, as a program, it's fine.
We've also made adjustments to access control to keep the two populations separate. So you need a card
Oh, yeah.
to get into the second or third floor. If you're coming in as a high school student in that side entrance on the ground floor, you can only go straight up. You can't get into either the basement, second and first floor. You'd have to have the card to get in.
Yeah, from a security standpoint, they don't mingle.
That's great, thank you.
Oh,
Simmons?
thank you. This question is for Sean. One, I'm finally glad that Brentwood finally got a permanent place, a home. But I do have some questions. I remember when we was touring Brentwood, the old location, and we talked about preschoolers coming in and having a separate access to the building for them and a playground for them. But you answered this in some of the slides that you were showing. And then a half court for the high schoolers. So they're on opposite sides of the building, right? So they will not be leaving the building at the same time, coming in at the same time of their...
Correct. I mean, even the building times for the two populations are different. The school starts for one different than the other one and ends different for one than the other. They will be at separate, these are still things that we have to work with the architect on where things get sited. But the original idea is put the basketball court on the west side, playground stays on the east.
Okay. And then I want to talk about the lunch area and a safe space. Was one point we were doing a safe place for the Brentwood students. And is there a location in the building for a safe place for them? An area,
I'm not really clear what you mean by a safe space.
such as when they get out of control.
Like, okay, like a break room or a quiet
Right.
space. We do have that shown in our plans right now. We've actually pretty recently had a meeting with some of the administration over there, as well as I think Marsha Bagley was involved in that call. And so they gave us some additional suggestions or requirements for some spaces. One of them was the break room, so we do have a space like that identified.
Okay. And also a kitchen. That wasn't identified in there. Is it not, you're not going to have a,
There is a kitchen.
there is a kitchen.
We do have
I
a
see it.
kitchen. We actually installed that this past summer. We were still working on it on Christmas break. So they have a sink, they have a stove, refrigerators. They've got the whole thing. They got their own cafeteria set up with pub tables, regular tables. So it's pretty good shape at this point.
Okay, let me address that one, just that. There's one question I didn't write down, but this is off the top of my head, if I can think of it. What happened if we, the crisis that's in Ukraine right now, you think that the surge in oil prices and gas prices will delay our project at all? Anybody can answer that?
I can't predict the future myself.
Yeah.
All right, but,
There's contingencies built into the budget. We hope that those will cover any escalations that do occur. But again, we can't foresee everything that happens.
right.
So again, there is some contingency built into the project budget that was brought forward to you today. So
Plus, if we go in for the 5 million even, there's another 300K in contingency.
Okay,
And the reason I do that is two reasons. One, I don't want to go back to the well for a second bond or an add-on unless you have to. I know, so. And then it has the extra contingency in case there are price increases.
Alderman Dowd, if I'm,
Yes.
that kind of addressed the cost side of it as far as procurement. I think Harvey could speak to that, but we've been seeing that affect us on every project that's kind of started over the past couple of years here, so it's hard to say how that'll pan out. I know Kathy, you wanted to.
No, it's just to reiterate what you're saying. It's really tough to predict the market, the volatility, and where the materials are going to be at. I will say that getting the work done in the summertime, summers keep getting shorter, it seems, during school summers. So there'll be a big push to get those stair towers in the summer, assuming we get to move forward. And, you know, procuring the materials is something we track as closely as we can and just continue to keep everybody updated. So a lot of it's out of our control, and typically on every project, something will go awry, and we figure out, you know, how to work around it, change a color or change a product or figure if we can live with it. So it's just part of the process.
And so everything that's done on the Franklin Middle School and everything that's spent out of that bond will be done here.
Okay.
Militia.
What's the capacity at that? I'm sure it's different up and down, right?
So right now, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 classrooms of preschool, and they're probably 15 kids each. Just round numbers. So, and then the Brentwood program right now, I believe, is around 18 kids.
Thank you.
So the thing is, what we're planning for, though, is the Brentwood program is planning for upwards of 40
Okay.
high school students. And we have, let me double back. In the preschool, we have 2 sessions every day. Each one of those is 40 or 45 kids. So
Oh, okay.
80 to 90 kids a day. That's going to at least double next year.
Wow.
Why we need the second floor.
One other question to piggyback on Alderman Wilshire. She talked about the, do we have monies, or can we get students from other locations, such as other towns, coming into Brentwood? Because at one point, we were talking about bringing in other towns to bring in extra funds. Is that still in the making, or?
That's a decision to be made by the Board of Education.
Okay, okay,
Room-wise, yes. We just deal with the physical building,
okay,
not the program.
okay. All
I
right,
think that was the plan, Gloria.
Yeah.
okay. Hey, well, I just got off the board, so it's going to be a lot of school questions. Give me a
Yeah, she's
break.
transitioning.
Yes, right, and it's hard. They
Yeah.
always slap in my hand, you know. Board did- No. So, okay,
It's a learning curve.
yeah.
If anybody wants a tour of Franklin Street at any time, especially this coming week, there's no school, I'd be happy to give that to
Yeah.
you.
Been through it a number of times. We had several meetings there with DPW and the school and Harvey and Harriman and any other questions about Franklin Street? If not, I'll entertain a motion to allow Alderman Dowd to proceed with a bond for $5 million to cover the costs that were associated with this presentation tonight.
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Wiltshire made the motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right, Sean. We need to pay
Invoice
some
time.
bills.
Okay. So these invoices are on your financial sheets and also on the agenda. I'll be reading from the agenda. We have 3 invoices from Harriman, one for the new middle school, one for Pennachuck, and one for work at Franklin Street. The totaling $77,030.57. We have 2 invoices from Harvey Construction for work at Pennachuck and the new middle school for $1,116,033.09. 1 invoice from Page Street Storage for the ground storage unit at Pennachuck for $95. 1 invoice from School Furnishings, which are providing furniture, for the furnishings at Fairgrounds Middle School for $2,711.68. We have, just turning the page, 2 invoices from Turner Group for work at Fairgrounds Middle School and Pennachuck Middle School. Turner Group does our commissioning work for us. Those two total $1,555,065. And finally, we have 1 invoice from Vanessa and Associates. They are our traffic consultant for work at Pennachuck. It's $594.50. Those total $1,180,269.49 for the middle school project, and $3,535 for Franklin Street project.
Okay, you heard the total of the invoices. Did you include the rebate of $13,680?
I did not. I should have said that. We have a,
That's in our favor.
yes, we had a rebate, so that's a plus as opposed to a minus of $13,680.
Okay. So you've heard the invoices and the credits. Is there a motion to accept and pay the bills? Alderman Timmons?
Yes, it's
Any
motion.
discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, invoices. Comments by committee members. Anyone that would like to present any comments? No? I will say that I was really good to get the AOT from the state. It's quite a process, the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And with the Department of Environmental Services and the Fish and Game, and now we have it. We have the AOT. That's the important thing. We have the other permits that came today from the city. So we will be having a, what do we call it, meeting, Ken? Pre-construction meeting. And that'll involve everybody in the world, I think. But fire chief, police chief, planning, et cetera, et cetera. Then we also need a meeting at some point with the Conservation Commission, but that's probably a little further down. But we'll let everybody know when those meetings are, but technically we should be moving along and just don't get in the way of the chainsaws next week and you'll be all set. Any other questions or comments? I think that's that page again. So we don't need a non-public. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, Alderman Sullivan made the motion to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:45. Thank you, everyone.
No, John, that was a